Good morning and a warm welcome from Modena. Specifically, we find ourselves in the theatre based in Modena, dedicated to Luciano Pavarotti, operatic tenor, well known all around the world. The first edition of this Motor Valley Fest was in 2019. As you know, this area hosts the most important companies working in the automotive industry. Last year, it was a great success. And this year, as you know perfectly, we are turning this edition into a digital edition. Let's see on this occasion what the industry is doing and the ideas that are being considered in order to restart our engines. Allow me to greet all the hosts here with me. And I know more hosts are about to come. I would like to greet the Chief Marketing and Commercial Officer Ferrari, Mr. Galliera, Mr. Domenicali, CEO Ducati Motor, Mr. Domenicali, Chairman and CEO Automotive Lamborghini. Orazio Pagani is about to come, and I would like to greet Mr. Pontremoli, CEO of General Manager of Dallara. This is a great start for this industry indeed. I would like to thank those who supported the event and the organizers, as well as the partners, the Municipality of Modena, Maranello, Associazione Motor Valley Development, Meneghini, and Associati, with the support of ENIT, ACI, Anfia, UNRAE, Autopromotec, Muna, Camera di Commercio di Modena, Fondazione di Modena, Bologna Fiere, Motorsport Network, Unicredit, which is the main sponsor of the event, and the media partners, which are RAI and Wall Street Journal. The Emilia-Romagna region, as you know, it's a paramount partner. That's why I'm calling to this stage the president of Emilia-Romagna region, Mr. Stefano Bonaccini. Good morning, Mr. Pontremoli. Good morning, President. We have to keep distances, as you know perfectly. So I would like to leave you the floor in order to greet on behalf of institutions. And we are looking forward to discover a surprise. First of all, allow me to thank the mayor, Mr. Muzzarelli, who last year wanted to organize the first edition of Motor Valley Fest. This year, it's going to be digital. By the new technologies, we have the chance to talk to all the passionates and fans that want to follow us today. When you say motors, you immediately think of Emilia-Romagna. And motors means mechanics, mechatronics, and Modena, with its local area, covers a lot of this. Our land, for sure, has prestigious brands. Over the past years, I had the chance to travel all around the world and sign institutional and commercial agreements with relevant regions, from the United States to China, from South Africa to Canada, and in many more European countries. So when I visited those countries, if I said Ferrari, Maserati, Lamborghini, Pagani, Dallara, those were some of the most prestigious brands all around the world. And immediately, the people I was talking to thought I was so lucky. But there's more than that. Of course, they are extraordinary players. But beyond that, there are more than 16,000 companies working with great craftsmanship, excellencies, and this is the automotive supply chain. We do hope that very soon we will go back being leaders throughout the world in exports. Last year, more than 60 billion goods were exported throughout the world, and the industry of motors, mechatronics, and mechanics ranked first. Then we do have 30 museums and private collections, as well as 4 tracks. All in all, this region turned Motor Valley into a touristic brand. Millions of people came from all over the world to Emilia-Romagna and to Modena to visit such aces of the industry. But we went beyond that. We thought about research and universities. We have here the Motor Vehicle University of Emilia-Romagna. We have 10 historical brands. So very often we talk about smart people going abroad, but yet in this region we have plenty of talents that are going to come here in order to help us and study. For sure, this is an unprecedented situation. The word pandemic means that this is affecting the whole world. We are battered by this pandemic, yet we wanted to celebrate this Motor Valley Fest as a relaunch. We have to bear in mind that the protection of health is paramount. At the same time, we want to look forward and invest in the future. When it comes to motors, well, we are about to sign an agreement in order to make sure that the GP championship is going to be held in Misano in July. But it's not by chance that thanks to our digital tools, we have partnerships also with the Wall Street Journal, meaning that throughout the world, thousands of fans have the chance to follow us. Let me be reassuring here. After the Second World War, this territory was struck heavily. Emilia-Romagna region was one of the most poor areas in the whole Italian countries, and people fled abroad to find some food. Our grandmothers and fathers gave us one of the best quality of life ever. Some years ago, a terrible earthquake struck this area, 14 million euros in damages, but we recovered from that. But I am very much sure that together with the Emilia-Romagna people and those working in the manufacturing sector, we will go back on track. We don't really complain. We work hard, and I'm very much complained that Emilia-Romagna region will again find its place in the world. Well, actually, we are here in order to take a look at the resources and ideas that we have. So the excellencies of Motor Valley kept on working. We have technology that allows us to communicate those ideas and suggestions. Let me introduce 2 institutional videos now, and thank you for being here with us. I will talk to you slightly later. I would like to introduce the mayor of Modena, Giancarlo Muzzarelli, via a video, and Giuseppe Molinari, president of the Chamber of Commerce. Good morning and welcome back to Modena in this second edition of Motor Valley Fest. This is a very special edition indeed. We decided to keep on developing this event, and we find ourselves in front of this theatre dedicated to Luciano Pavarotti, the operatic tenor. We want to discuss about automotive innovation and new technologies because we need to restart our engines. This year, the event will be pretty different, reaching your households and companies. We will be interactive. Coronavirus has partially destroyed relationships, but we want to rebuild relationships, employment, and progress as well. That is why, on occasion of this International Congress, we want to think about motors, beauty, and new opportunities in order to consider automotive, which is a strategic sector. Modena is at the heart of the sector in this Emilia-Romagna region. We want to look ahead, and we want to find a new perspective in order to be able to host you next year. This year, unfortunately, that was not possible, but Modena is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We have monuments, museums, including, of course, the museum dedicated to Enzo Ferrari. We want to keep on creating great opportunities. We wanted to organize this event this year with Emilia-Romagna region because we want to keep the thread of automotive in Emilia-Romagna region. We want this event to take place. We want to keep on investing in a strategic sector in terms of employment and beauty. In 40 square kilometers, we find the most beautiful cars in the world. And next year, you will have the chance to admire those excellent cars in our squares. It's important that our companies keep on producing and manufacturing in order to create employment and progress. That is why we wanted to keep this event alive. This international event will revolve around new trends in design, new trends in the environmental protection, electric vehicles, and the whole of worldwide automotive. Modena has an area named MASA, Modena Automotive Smart Area. A portion of this city has been dedicated in order to study and research around autonomous vehicles and new technical opportunities. The event here hosts the best brands in the world, universities, and our university as well, which is a firm point in this sector. We have to move ahead. The University of Modena and Reggio Emilia had worked hard working in this Modena Automotive Smart Area, a place within the city available to measure new technologies. Take a look at public transport, electric transport, but most of all, the mobility of the future. This land wants to be a motor valley, a land of challenges to create beauty and a better future. This year, therefore, we wanted to hold this initiative, and we invite you next year with the engine roaring in order to ensure a better future, employment and passion from the capital of motors, Modena. We invite you next year to be with us here, physically present in Modena, to share a great community and passion. The Motor Valley Fest these days is about to start on its second edition. The context this year is very complex, as we all know. The pandemic struck Italy as well as the world and affected negatively the economy. We might have thought to choose for a convenient surrender. Last year, though, the event involved among the most important and prestigious OEMs and the supply chain of the automotive sector, moving great turnovers, as well as big know-hows, and the commitment of stakeholders together with the Chamber of Commerce, business associations, and institutions. So, organizers did not choose to surrender. They wanted to revamp the event. And these struggles are not a problem, but an opportunity. Organizing a similar event is, of course, involving new ways and measures. So it's not only about parading extraordinary cars in the local area, but we are moving towards an elevated cultural level. We are mustering together the biggest automotive minds at an international level, involving as well the supply chain and the know-how of this region. We are about to discuss very interesting topics such as electric vehicles, batteries, and the use of alternative energies such as hydrogen and fuel cells. We will then discuss about ethical topics such as those revolving around autonomous drive and artificial intelligence. Thanks to this event in digital version, we will not scatter, waste a great investment that we did mirroring the culture of this local area. This media event is a worldwide event. Among the many different magazines supporting the event, we can name many international newspapers and magazines. We would like also to highlight the skills and competencies of our university, our motorcycle university of Emilia-Romagna, Muner. Beyond that, we want to make sure that we have the right investment in the infrastructure to support such technological development. For sure, the business associations as well as institutions and the stakeholders of the Chamber of Commerce launched a very positive message. We wanted to grasp this unmissable opportunity. We supported economically this initiative that deserves continuity. I would like to thank all the participants, but most of all, I would like to thank the organizers who could and are able to now develop such a different event in a digital way. This event is our way to witness the speed in which we, the people of Emilia-Romagna, react. I wish you all the success. Thank you both for this video contribution. Allow me to introduce the contribution of Mr. Cesare Bisoni, President of Unicredit, who strongly believed in this event.
A tutti I partecipanti a questo importante appuntamento per la nostra industria nazionale e questo territorio. E mi fa particolarmente piacere porgere questo saluto a Modena, nella città in cui vivo. Mi auguro che la Motor Valley Fest possa rappresentare un segnale di ripresa e di uscita dalla crisi sanitaria, sociale ed economica innescata da Covid-19. Modena e il suo territorio hanno le potenzialità per essere in prima linea nel rilancio del nostro paese. E ciò anche grazie al supporto di Unicredit, e mi fa piacere sottolineare che proprio qui a Modena abbiamo effettuato la prima erogazione legata al decreto liquidità. Unicredit, pur nella complessità e nella drammaticità della situazione in cui ci troviamo, ha saputo rapidamente attrezzarsi e garantire piena operatività e supporto alla propria clientela. Ciò è stato possibile grazie alle strategie adottate dalla banca negli ultimi anni, in particolare l'aver puntato sulla digitalizzazione dei processi bancari. In coerenza con il piano Unicredit per l'Italia abbiamo scelto di sostenere l'edizione 2020 della Motor Valley Fest per riaffermare con forza e concretamente la vicinanza al territorio e la volontà di far ripartire il motore industriale del Paese. E in questo caso la parola motore non ha evidentemente solo un senso figurato. Motor Valley Fest è un'iniziativa che ha il cuore e la base a Modena, nella terra dei motori, ma ha un respiro internazionale. È un evento che celebra l'unione perfetta tra la passione per i motori, l'innovazione, la sostenibilità e l'identità del territorio e accende i riflettori su un settore di punta dell'eccellenza made in Italy. L'automotive, un comparto del quale Unicredit conosce i punti di forza e l'alto potenziale. Chiudo ribadendo che il supporto all'economia reale rappresenta un punto fermo nella strategia di Unicredit, essere una grande e solida banca paneuropea con il quartier generale in Italia ci permette di essere un partner affidabile nel sostenere le imprese del nostro territorio in un percorso di crescita anche a livello internazionale. Grazie e buon lavoro.
Well, Thank you for the support. Thank you to the president of UniCredit. I would like to call Stefano Bonaccini back on stage with me because we are about to award a very important person, a protagonist of this land, a protagonist that joins together excellencies, but yet in another sector different from the automotive one, yet I would find a connection. Can you please join me here? Meanwhile, we will little by little unveil what we are about to do. So, this is a motor valley, but we go beyond that, isn't it? The beauty of this land is that there is a synergy between motors, food, and the excellencies of the local area. The whole of Italy should behave like that. We should mirror your example. In this territory, you managed to gather these excellencies in a perfect way, I would say. We therefore have a representative of another sector expressing the beauty of Italy throughout the world. Well, we are in the theatre dedicated to Luciano Pavarotti, which is an extraordinary tenor, well known all around the world. Well, thanks to the digital edition, this event is going to be disseminated throughout the world, meaning that our passion will be alive and disseminated. Well, music and food are extraordinary means of promotions of a local area. Now we are about to welcome somebody who has demonstrated his excellence. We don't need to give him good grades. He helped us to promote the Emilia-Romagna region throughout the world, and over the last years he has been named the best chef in the world, Massimo Bottura. Well, we keep our distance here. Maybe you can just take out your mask, but please keep your distance. Well, I have just a few words to say. Please allow me to thank Massimo. And in a symbolic way, we would like to award him on behalf of Modena and Emilia-Romagna region. His land wants to acknowledge him for what he was able to showcase and demonstrate on a daily basis. He is an ambassador of Emilia-Romagna region in the world. We are particularly pleased that excellencies such as these are present in our region, and we are proud of him. Thank you, Stefano. Well, I'm here with friends, therefore I feel at home, really. Well, I often say that in my future there will always be future. We never stop believing, never stop investing and thinking of what we can improve in order to be better. This is a struggling moment, and hospitality has been battered. We are still closed. We don't know when we will be able to open up once again. Stefano is fighting for us and the whole sector. We might become an example for every other region in Italy. We work a lot with foreign countries, personally speaking, therefore that's going to be a huge challenge ahead. Yet tonight I received a news from New York. We were awarded as Casa Maria Luigia as the best gastronomic experience in the world back to last year. And we still invest in our activity, and we deeply believe in this local area. In the past, people talked about Catalogne and Basque countries, and I responded that Emilia-Romagna is up to the challenge. We need to believe in ourselves. We need to have leaders that grant us with trust. Let's make sure international journalists come and visit to see with their own eyes. It's all about communication and synergy. That's what we need to do. We need to communicate and create a synergy between the different elements and excellencies, namely museums, motors, restaurants, universities as well. When you create a synergy, tourists do no longer come to visit the Osteria Francescana, visit the museum dedicated to Ferrari, visit Lamborghini or Ducati. Tourists come to experience and chew a market, to understand better this market and to understand what happens here. Well, the virus basically shattered everything, but we have a great inner strength. We are so much willing to react, and we're not afraid. We're not afraid about this challenge. We woke up one morning after the earthquake and reacted as well. I achieved my success only as an adult, so I know what it takes. I wanted deeply to keep safe my staff. On Saturday, Francescana, Franceschetta, and Maria Luigia were packed with people, but then we came to know that we were in the red zone. And on Monday, I told my staff and the whole world that the Osteria Francescana was not about to reopen. We will do that. We will reopen only when there are the necessary conditions and safe conditions to do that. The first thing I wanted to do was to protect my team. My team is my family. My team is my future. When we will all be safe, we will open and be stronger than ever. I believe it's key to be here. Everybody came, and this means that, well, everybody believes in the restart. So behind closed doors, we kept on working in order to inaugurate the restaurant in Maranello. When are you going to open? Well, I would say between February and March. In Maranello, correct? It's going to be marvelous, really. I've taken a look at the renderings and designs, and I worked with John. It's an evocative place, really, a beautiful place indeed. Let's invite everybody, therefore, to come. Yes, of course, you're all invited. People from abroad also are invited. You can only park in my restaurant with Italian cars, though. Well, this morning I thought we might have problems in traveling by plane. So let's stay in our country, in Italy, and we invite foreign guests to come and visit. This is going to be a beautiful journey, a beautiful car, a wonderful motorbike. Let's go and visit museums, eat great food in restaurants. Italy is beautiful by and large. And, well, we do invite Italians to do this as well. There are places at times that are forgotten, yet they deserve a visit. Yes, that is what I said to the Corriere della Sera newspaper. This is a great chance for Italians to rediscover Italy and understand what it means to be Italian. Arts, creativity, light. That's Italy. This year, Italian people should stay in Italy. When I come to a stoplight and I look on my side and I see a German car, I always respond back saying, how come you bought a German car? We have beautiful Italian cars. Well, yes, we do have a highly technological industry. and manufacturing plants that supply German companies as well, meaning that German cars are manufactured by Italians as well. So we are excellent in this way as well. We will come and visit you for sure. Thank you. Well, congratulations for the international award you received this night. Was it a surprise? Well, it was a beautiful surprise. I really needed this positive, let's say, push. This pandemic triggers ups and downs. We connected via digital means and wore our masks. Well, we will see later with our foreign guests that technology allows us to disseminate the beauty of Italy throughout the world. Thank you. Now, the next step is going to be a very important contribution, a video, an international guest from Paris, Mr. Jean Todt, that is the president of the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile. Dear friends, I would like to greet you all and extend a warm greeting. After 2 extremely difficult months, I'm glad to know that in Italy, as well as in Europe, the phase 2 has started, which is as much demanding. I was pleased to be informed that the Modena Motor Valley Fest has been organized in a digital way. This is the first ever event on the topics of future and mobility in the post-lockdown era in Italy. We will think upon the mobility world and how to start back after COVID-19. This is very important in order to understand the consequences on some trends which we thought to be steady, such as the electric cars, share mobility, connectivity. But also, we want to favor a radical transformation of transport system to make it safer and sustainable. Many industry operators are struggling. The automotive industry stopped for over 2 months. Public transport are suffering, and some shared mobility operators are struggling as well. Likewise, mayors, not only in Italy, but all over around the world, are reflecting on the most appropriate measures to start back mobility in cities. Emilia-Romagna is the place where Motovalley was born. All along Via Emilia, some of the most brilliant cars and motors have been developed, and they marked the motor and sports innovation of the last century. I am sure that these days event is going to be renewal, research and proposal laboratory to relaunch mobility. I wish you all the success and hope to see you soon. Now, a research and innovation laboratory. The Motor Valley is indeed such a laboratory, and it has to become even more after this pandemic. We will hear about ideas, programs and projects, because Motor Valley did not stop, really. But before moving to the debate with my hosts here, we do have, I want to say we have very important hosts abroad. And you can ask a question after their speech, and we will then start a debate here when they have finished. Let's now connect to Chicago, where Mr. Gianluca Camplone from McKinsey is. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, so I would like to thank him truly for being with us, keeping awake. Or rather, you slept and then you woke up. Good morning anyway. So, can you hear me? How are you? It's dark, but I'm fine. I slept around 3 hours, plus 2, but it's okay. Don't worry. Mr. Camplone is senior partner at McKinsey, and he will share with us all these scenarios ahead after COVID-19, what has changed and what is going to happen after this period. To you. Thank you so much. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me here. Congratulations to the organizers for moving towards this digital version in a very short period of time. It's beautiful to witness such digitalization. Can you see my slides? Perfect. I wanted to talk about 3 topics today. An overview of what COVID-19 is bringing to the automotive sector, understanding the impacts on the structural trends, the so-called ACEs, autonomous drive, connectivity, electrification, and shared mobility. And given that we are in the luxury market land and valley, we will try to understand the impact of industry trends on this premium market. Let's take a look at what's happening here. From the beginning of this pandemic, we developed global scenarios that we weekly update. As you can see here, we have 9 scenarios, macroeconomic worldwide scenarios, but of course these can be applied to every sector. A3 and A1 have the highest sentiment among the executives that we involved in this survey, which we carry on weekly. A3 particularly is the one reaching the more sentiment in the world. So a slow recovery, and this assuming that there are no contagion waves. If there are new affected countries, A1 or B2 scenario would take place, which is bad news for the worldwide economy and the automotive sector as well. Specifically, if we take a look at volumes, here is the impact on curves. The blue curve, light blue curve, was the initial sales forecast, whereas bars are the new sales forecasts after the COVID-19 impact at the 7th of May. So things can change. We're talking about a drop in 25% in terms of sales in the worldwide automotive market. As you can see, the curve is going to be back to initial volumes at the end of the year. Specifically, if we take a look at technological trends and business models that are redesigning the automotive sector, let's start with autonomous driving, which is a long-term trend. It's a long-term pattern. We won't see much change here. We're talking about 2030 and beyond here. Clearly enough, there are some news already talking about postponing of programs on behalf of car makers and technological startups. So they are postponing investments. The other aspect we are noticing is the fact that autonomous driving was individual in the beginning, and then we had autonomous delivery. So we have people working in the e-commerce sector. We do have a repurposing here of the business model of such vehicles. In terms of electrification, we might say that the pathway has started as well. It's a long-term pathway guided by the emission reduction, so the need to reduce emissions rather than cope with the oil price. Actually, we do have programs that have been postponed and cancelled, but this has to do with capex. Manufacturers and suppliers are very careful managing the cash flow. That is why they are postponing programs. Capex account for expenditure, and therefore manufacturers work hard on this aspect. The good news is that connectivity is going to become important, increasingly important. All of a sudden, we all turned to be digital all around the world. According to many customer surveys, customers, generally speaking, and specifically in the premium sector, well, customers are more willing towards embracing the digital world and connectivity. Services linked to connected cars and vehicles are going to accelerate. Our estimates is that per car, per vehicle, in the next 3 to 5 years, the revenue will be around $300-400. In terms of ride-sharing and e-hailing, meaning shared mobility, well, before COVID-19, Europe was strongly growing, as you can see from this graph, meaning that Europe was at the beginning of the penetration curve when it comes to e-hailing, especially. COVID-19 is bringing countries at a standstill, at a brisk stop. Of course, due to the fact that sharing mobility is a thorny issue right now. We are already witnessing some government incentives moving towards a shift towards individual mobility, mopeds, bikes, e-bikes. But according to the surveys that we carry out weekly, for a while we will go back to our private cars and vehicles. Many customers tell us that in the next 18 to 24 months, the safer place in which to travel is their own car. This is one of the reasons why we saw that automotive sector is let's say, scoring better if compared to the rest of the economy, because we're going back to use our vehicle, meaning there is going to be a positive impact in terms of after sales, spare parts, and car sales and purchasing. If we take a look at the impact of this situation in the premium market and the luxury market, well, there's going to be a disruption indeed. These are some comments from some car and luxury market players, which was really wiped out lately. Yet there are some lights ahead. According to a very interesting survey carried out by executives in the luxury market, well, almost nobody thinks that we will go back to what it was. Only 2% expects a few months of declines and then the return to normal. But around 44% of executives thinks that there are going to be deep changes and a new world in the luxury market will come to happen. Very soon we will see that digitalization is going to be the consequence of this. Good news now. A better resilience in terms of the purchasing desire in wealthy levels. So the drop here is just 7%. So the losses are going to be slightly less if compared to other sectors. The other good news, or at least a very interesting remark, is the tendency to move towards digital services in the sales and after-sales sector. The high-income sectors are willing to use online remote services. And some manufacturers and OEMs allow that. Let me conclude with some remarks that, according to me and McKinsey, some remarks that should reflect the 5 elements of this recipe to manage this situation. The first, agility, being nimble in managing the business. On occasion of budget management, for example. At the moment, we are struggling, so we do need agility at an organizational level and the ability to take quick and speedy decisions when needed, as well as identifying scenarios and different markers for different scenarios. We have to make sure the organization can take decisions and manage the equilibrium between being nimble and stable, between being innovative and being stable in our business. Second point, digitalization and connectivity. Customers are ready, and they demand that. Fortunately, or unfortunately, we had the chance to speed up on the digitalization. We need to keep on investing and working hard. Right here, I would like to talk about some car dealers that have been creative and via chat and WhatsApp, thanks to FaceTime, for example, they offer customers a virtual tour of their showroom and the available cars. These experiences are going to be tuned up in the next month. The other side of this situation is that digitalization and connectivity lead to the production of big data. And big data are key to understanding customers, which is, of course, a great chance to understand and profile customers at times in a time where we don't have the chance to meet them. Partnerships are also key. We have to take the most out of the relationships we have. And signing partnership with dealers, of course, is a key aspect, but also we should add partnerships with other luxury partners, partners belonging to the value chain. Finally, the fifth point, supply chain resilience. This is at the heart, and COVID-19 has shown that the automotive supply chain was very much depending on some specific areas of the world, meaning that we now need to create a balanced supply chain in terms of geography and suppliers as well. A supply chain in which suppliers have to help manufacturers to be resilient and improve their planning and operations. So we need to create a supplier development and integration I'm pleased to answer to your questions if you have any. Out of these 5 points, is there one element which is more prominent than others? Well, for sure, digitalization is key, which also is tightly connected with analytics. So if I had to choose among these 5 points, I would say these 2 points, digitalization and analytics. Thank you so much. Well, if you have questions, we still have some minutes here. Everything's clear, of course. Okay, then. Thank you so much, Mr. Camplone, for waking up in the middle of the night and to be with us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Let's move to the following host, Dr. Markus Hein, Bosch, which is a company that plays a key role, level 1 supplier, a company mirroring the history of the automotive industry, based in Germany, and he's going to talk about the future of mobility. The word now to Markus Hein. Can you hear us?
Hello? Yeah, I can. Hello to all of you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, good evening. Good morning. Good morning. Where are you now?
Good morning. Yeah, excellent. Everything is fine.
Are you in London?
No, I'm in Stuttgart, in Germany, in my office.
Okay. So you can show your slide.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Then let me start.
Yeah.
First, I would like to start with some positive news. Despite the fact that the coronavirus has been and still is a challenge for all of us, I'm personally absolutely positive about how we as human beings have coped with that so far. I think all of us have demonstrated big energy, patience, and creativity. And honestly, if I think about how my answer would have been a year ago, if somebody would have asked me, would we be able from one day to the next to have 90% work from home, my answer probably would have been that would never work. But in reality, I think today, I find it really thrilling that we, as human beings, have shown that it's feasible. And honestly, what has been achieved so far already, under circumstances which are truly difficult, I think is really amazing. Let me give just, let's say, begin with that, because I think also in, or especially in difficult times, it is important to look at the light at the end of the tunnel, because if we as business leaders don't see it, it's difficult to, let's say, convince people that it's coming and to improve their consumer behavior. With that, I would like to show you a little bit what we are doing in terms of our automotive strategy. And with regard to CO2, which prior to coronavirus has been, let's say, in discussion and all over the media, we are maintaining our long-term strategic course. We will achieve the goal to become carbon neutral by the end of this year. And at the end of 2019, we already achieved carbon neutrality for all our locations in Germany. And as we speak today, we are at 70%, 70% worldwide. Besides this internal focus, we as Bosch take 2 additional approaches. One goal is to make activities along the value chain, meaning from purchased goods to use of products sold, as climate neutral as possible. By 2030, emissions in scope 3 are expected to fall by 15% or more than 50 million metric tons per year. As the first automotive supplier, Bosch has agreed on a measurable target with the Science Based Targets initiative. This strong commitment towards sustainability is also in the core of our automotive strategy. We believe in the future of mobility, and we believe it's going to be personalized, automated, connected, and electrified. So our acronym is called PACE. In the Corona crisis, there are parts which are being impacted. And my predecessor from McKinsey already talked about that a little bit. Let me extend that view on personalized with the examples of sharing offers. And I think it's fair to say that within the first couple of months of this year, the amount of offers and acceptance of ride-hailing, for instance, in China, but also in the US, dropped by figures like 70 and 80%. I think it's evident that the mobility service providers are currently suffering a big hit worldwide due to Corona. And I think we need to be clear that it will take time until this comes back. Fortunately enough, these guys are creative, have been creative, and try to, let's say, pivot their business models to the extent that they rather carry food as opposed to carrying passengers, which is the bigger demand at this point in time. That means that the automation activities, which are for all automotive companies in terms of investment, big burden, because heavy pre-investments need to be taken until level 4 and level 5 automation can be achieved. I'm positive about level 1, 2 automation that is underway and will not be impacted by the current situation. With this, I would like to focus now on the pillar electrified a little bit. It does not only represent electric vehicles, but the complete range of modern powertrain technologies from our point of view. We play a broad technology offensive that not only sets out a battery electric path to sustainable mobility, but also takes into consideration efficient combustion engines and especially renewable synthetic fuels and fuel cells. We truly believe it is important to achieve the climate targets until 2050, that all technologies are really being pursued instead of focusing only on one. Certainly, battery electric vehicles are fun to drive with zero local emissions and key technology for city zones. As being most efficient in energy consumptions, the BEVs will be one major pillar in the future powertrain mix. The modern combustion engine will remain a part of this powertrain mix. In 2030, 2 out of 3 newly registered vehicles worldwide will be powered by a combustion engine. Strong hybridization will certainly reduce CO2 emissions from diesel and gasoline engines from today over 100 grams per kilometer down to probably 20 to 30 grams per kilometer. Of course, 48-volt hybridization alone cuts fuel consumptions already by up to 15%. The modern diesel does not contribute any relevant NOx emissions anymore. I really would like to emphasize that. It keeps its CO2 advantages, is affordable, and it is already on the road today. Furthermore, we are pushing the hydrogen economy and the production of renewable synthetic fuels because they are essential for achieving climate neutrality by 2050. With our move into fuel cells, Bosch aims to electrify at least at first heavy trucks with a start of production by 2022 at the latest. By 2030, 10 to 20% of all electric vehicles, in our view, will have a fuel cell on board. With hydrogen from renewable energies, this propulsion can run CO2 neutral, and it qualifies, and its qualities are similar to current conventional propulsion systems. I think that's important because we are all accustomed to the long range and short refueling times, which, by the way, are fundamental and essential for the commercial vehicle business. Synthetic fuels have an immediate effect on the current fleet. The focus is on drop-in renewable fuels, means blended fuel or renewable fuel according to the existing norms, which can then be consumed in Europe via existing infrastructures by the entire fleet. Additional potential up to complete climate neutrality lies within e-fuels based on regenerative produced energy. Let's look at an example from the area of automated driving. And and I think it's clear to all of you, if an automated vehicle knows exactly and at all times what is going on around it, it can choose the right driving strategy. Bosch uses various technologies for surround sensing, including ultrasound, radar, and video. When it comes to structure and function, cameras come closest to the human eye, which is why they are a key asset for automated driving and why they already play an essential role in driver assistance. With the third generation of video camera, we could take automotive camera technology to a new level. The combination of its unique multipath approach and artificial intelligence for object recognition makes surround sensing far more reliable and road traffic safer. Another example, and now I'm going into the category of personalized, is what we call battery in the cloud. Battery in the cloud solves a real pain point for industry and consumers. Monitoring the health status of the battery, as it can highly differ based on charging and driving behavior, weather conditions, and other circumstances. The solution contains predictive diagnostics based on AI algorithm to forecast the aging of batteries and can support to protective charging by individually optimized charging curves. All the information can be finally put together for a lifetime monitoring and an actual certificate of usage. This way, the vehicles become more attractive for second-hand market and support fleet companies with a reliable health status of the battery. I hope I could provide you a brief overview about our Bosch automotive strategy and some concrete examples of our portfolio in the categories personalized, automated, connected, and electrified. The new the new era of mobility will be sustainable, safe, and looking at the companies being online today, exciting. And now I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you, Markus Hein. I would like to ask you a question. According to the scenario you've just explained, the right technology of the right powertrain technology to face the emission reduction is hybrid technology?
In my view, there are many rights, which means it highly depends on the use case. See, we are all individuals. Some of us live in big metropolitan cities. Many of us also live in rural areas. And certainly the use cases in transportation business are again different. So in my view, we have a broad range of right technologies. If I would go every day a couple of 100 kilometers, certainly a modern combustion engine would be the right choice. If I only travel, let's say, short distances, always and each day, electrification would be preferred. If I need to have both, maybe a hybrid is good. And fundamentally, affordability plays a huge role, because I think for all of us, vehicles are important. And especially in those times, everybody is happy who has his own vehicle, and sharing currently takes place more or less only within family and friends.
Certo.
Sure. Well, different players in the Stuttgart Valley are working, but did you go beyond that local area, or do you have more news about that?
Well, we are, as you know, not just working in the Stuttgart area, but let's say we are working globally. We have set up various activities, and let's say similar to the Motor Valley area, we have also in the Stuttgart region a similar activity going on, which is pretty successful, where we try to combine activities of various companies, foster the joint creativity, and come to new digital solutions. And therefore, I appreciate a lot what you're doing in Italy.
Grazie.
Thank you. Questions from the hosts to Dr. Hein? Well, we will make the most out of the information you provided. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, Dr. Hein. Have a great day. Now the floor to Christian Richter, Google. As you know, we have been all set aside and we've been isolated, but we really exploited, let's say, technologies and web technologies as well that for sure have to be optimized and improved. The word now to Mr. Christian Richter. He is going to inform us on what is taking place all around the world and how to make the most out of these technologies. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear very well. So, first of all, thank you for having me. I would have really liked to be there in person. I'm actually now VCing in from my home in Munich here. So, but first of all, hello, Valley. I'm happy to present both the Silicon Valley here, but also the Isar Valley, so the Munich region where I'm based. Also, the Google office in Munich is the EMEA hub for everything we're doing with the automotive industry. So in that way, it's actually really great to be with you. So let me see if I can present the screen and put up the presentation. Hang on, so. All right, can you see my presentation?
Sì, la vediamo.
Yes, we can, yes.
All right, perfect. So this is all about, coming back to what the colleagues also said with McKinsey earlier, is about how to win the omnichannel race. And I think winning the omnichannel race and becoming more digital, anything around sales and marketing is getting even more important in the times of Corona, but also afterwards, because we're very, very convinced that this is a trend to stay. First of all, maybe before going into the subject itself, I just want to show you how Alphabet and Google are positioned towards the automotive industry. I think what's very important is to make the distinction between Alphabet, the holding, and Google as one part of Alphabet. So Waymo, everything around, autonomous driving, is actually separate. It's a separate legal entity. And within Google, we do have three functions that are serving the automotive industry. It's Google Cloud. It's anything around ads and platforms. And it's the whole thing around connectivity and infotainment, so Android Auto, Geo, Google Maps, the navigation unit, and everything. I'm leading the ads and platforms for the automotive vertical at Google. That means my key remit is anything that has to do with sales and marketing across car manufacturers, but also the dealers. So just, you know, how I fit into the wider Google ecosystem. So talking about omnichannel. For me, a typical omnichannel fail is so if planes fly and borders are open, I travel to London a lot. And I usually stay at a hotel which I really like because it's great, it's conveniently located. And I've stayed at this hotel probably 50 times. But every time I go there and I go and check in, I look at me and say, "Sir, have you stayed with us before?" And of course, I stay polite and say, "No, I haven't. This stayed with you before. Here's my contact details and everything." But in my head, I think, you should have all my details. I mean, you should have my email, you know, my credit card number, you know, everything to identify me. And, you know that I prefer a room on a higher floor and everything. And they go through this process every time from the beginning. Another thing is, for example, if you do a car configuration online, and then you basically create a lead and you go to the car dealer and you step in the dealer and you say, "So what model would you be interested in?" Which is, again, one part of the data and the work you've done with the brand and the retailer is getting lost at another touch point. So good omnichannel actually means to be able to bring all the customer interactions you have on your physical and digital touch points together and work with them seamlessly. And also what we do know is that this is a big, big benefit from a commercial point of view. Plus also customers increasingly get trained to it and expect it. What we see in auto, and this is already from 2018, where we do every 1 or 2 years, we do a major study where we ask car buyers about their digital behavior. We do know that 92% of vehicle purchases are actually digitally influenced. Also by 2025, 2/3 and more of advertising will be digital. So it's also the biggest channel where you're talking to customers. And also already then, 61% of new car buyers said they would actually consider purchasing the next vehicle online if they had the chance to. What we do now in the times of Corona is we actually run a very fast survey, and we can use Google Surveys to do this, to take a pulse of how do car buyers think. And this is from the latest research we actually updated every 4 weeks. So first of all, most car intenders haven't really altered their plans to buy in the last 30 days. Most of them are just, postponing. The second thing is more people actually want to buy online and go to dealer. And there are two things to it. The one thing is actually just safety and health concerns. But the other thing is also that people are finding out that actually buying online is very, very convenient. Also, this comes with people, if they want to do a test drive, they really prefer at-home test drives. And once they're being offered, the take rate is also really good. And also the key thing, what everybody's waiting for, and everybody's actually pretty much now looking for great deals, for example, cash discounts, 0% APR, and all of these things. The moment these things are going to come, these are the most likely things that will re-trigger the demand. And what we're also seeing is we both see manufacturers and dealers responding to this. So for example, Jeep just launched in the US in online shopping and driveway delivery thing. So you basically can buy the entire car online and they will deliver to the driveway. You will never have to set a foot into a car dealer. If you look at, this is from Sime Darby. Sime Darby is a really big car retailer group in Asia. And this is from their Singapore BMW dealer. And they also digitized the entire purchase experience, including video chats, videos of the cars, and actually also can transact online. Emil Frey, also I think it's the biggest retailer group in Europe, Swiss-based. They also launched now a pure online buy option. And also something you see, for example, from Arnold Clark. Arnold Clark is the biggest retailer group in Scotland. I once learned that 1 out of 3 cars sold in Scotland are sold via Arnold Clark. They also digitize everything, including, for example, things like exchange valuation. So how the valuation of your trade-in and everything. So also the other thing is actually, if you talk to the dealer groups, they actually say, you cannot completely take out the human factor. There are still people working behind the screens, but the cost to serve of a digital sale are actually less than the cost to serve via the traditional showroom. And more now they actually start to rethink, do we still need all of these showrooms? I mean, if you think about, we know from research that 10 years ago you had 5 showroom visits per car sold. Now you have 1 showroom visit per car sold, but you still maybe a bit reduced, but you still have about the same number of showrooms out there. So I think there's also a large real estate efficiency opportunity here for the industry. So how do you get omnichannel down? What we propose is to think about it in 3 steps, because omnichannel always means how do you bring the data together? This is the first thing. You actually need to bring all of the customer data, all the touch points together to be able to work with them. The first what we say is national advertising. Anything that happens on your advertising area, be it on the digital way, be it on a physical way, be it on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, wherever, you need to bring these data together. Because then you can reach the right user with the right message at the right time. The next thing is, how do you extend the data reach to your point of sale? So anything that is happening at your retailers in your CRM and DMS systems. And this is when you really bring it make it very powerful, because then actually you can connect the success of a sale to actually what you're doing when you talk to your consumer. The third thing is, if you think about the new business models, the ACES, what about mobility services? Data from EV charging and all of this. And the third step would be to extend the data lake perimeter to this. So here's an example from, number 1 of this, the advertising. So for example, if you test just different messages and you adapt the message to the profile of the audience you're talking to, and you can do it through programmatic advertising, through reading out customer signals in a privacy and data safe way. So for example, this is an example where, this is from Skoda, for example, where they personalized the creatives, and based on it, for example, based on this, you would actually get a seducer message, a socialite message, or a warrior message, depending on who you are. You actually could reduce the cost per lead by 50%. The reason is because you cut a lot of the waste. You do not talk to people that will actually not be receptive to your message, but you only direct your investment towards people that will be receptive to your message. And you also, once you reach them, because the message is much more tailored, you actually boost their engagement. So are they looking at it? Are they doing an action? Are they contacting your dealer or looking at your own webpage and everything by about 40%? So then the second thing, I think it's actually not longer to get your customers to the dealership. I think it's actually turns around. Now you need to get the dealership to the customers. So, and here we go. How do you do this? Because there's lots of data involved. So this is a real plot of actually a car buyer journey. If you really plot all the different interactions with model page, build your car, dealer locator, all of this, you have about 900 digital touch points along a customer journey. Also, it's like call to a call center, for example, and all of this. So how do you bring it together and how do you make sense out of it? And I think this is very, very important. This is where machine learning or artificial intelligence come in, because let's say it this way. Traditional computing was built on the fact that you say input plus algorithm equals output. And the algorithm was built by a smart human being. And it very often, for example, typical advertising was the Sigma milieu, so anything like your bias are 30 to 45 years, upper liberal or whatever, and you try to target it. Making sense of so many data is basically reaching the limits of the capability of a human being. So the thing you do with machine learning, you actually turn it around. You say input plus output equals algorithm. That means you give all the input, all the touch points, and the output is a success event. For example, you need to sell the car, or you need to produce the biggest possible contribution margin or top line effect. And then what the machine does, it actually builds the algorithm itself. For example, if you wanted this to turn into meaningful customer segments, this is how it could look. And this is called K-clustering. And what you see is that the machine is actually building patterns or clusters out of this with a most similar behavior. Which ultimately gives you 4 customer segments here that are actually based out of all of this really, really very cohesive and comprehensive, which you can work with. And what actually happens if you then work with the segments, and this is another example, the BMW picture is purely illustrative here, but basically if you say you can cluster it into 3 segments, and based on the prediction and propensity to buy, actually the ones with the greens, the high propensity audiences, deliver 9 times more sales than the yellow, or 77 times more sales than low. Which also means, of course, you will invest way more into green than in yellow or red. You also give them different messages. If you are a green, you give them the best deal and everything. If they are maybe the red, it's more an awareness message because maybe they will come back later and are not in market that much before. And also think about the waste you can cut. And I know there's always this thing, the old saying when say, I know 50% of my advertising budget is a waste. I just don't know which 50%. With a system like this, you actually know which 50% is a waste. You can go further. So for example, and this comes, I said you need to bring all the data points together. For example, if, and we've done this with a few retailer groups, if you bring all the sources, what's happens on mobile, what's happening on websites, what happens in your call center, what happens in your CRM system. If you really bring all of this together, you actually can lower your cost per sale by up to 50%, versus the total, versus a fragmented data landscape. The same thing also if you do it, another example where actually, because you could reach and redirect the budget to new and also high propensity buying audiences, you actually could increase sales up to 10% for a certain model or color. So there is a very, very big efficiency in it. Also think about, times now where everybody's very, very budget constrained. I think this is a good way to still sell more or keep selling whilst working on reduced budgets. So how do you do this? How do you bring it all together? I think what you need is to build a good enterprise solution for it. You need to have a good ad tech. So programmatic advertising, you need to have analytics. You need to connect it to your CRM and DMS and other data sources. And all of this needs to come together into one comprehensive data warehouse with machine learning capabilities in the cloud. The big, and I think this is a big question now at the end of it, is how do you do the transformation? Do you want to go brownfield or greenfield? Brownfield means you take an effort to connect your existing systems, CRM, DMS to a cloud, and then you activate all the use cases in the cloud. The benefit is you don't have to exchange all your CRM and DMS systems. You basically use the existing ones. The user interface, the user experience, and the dealers and everything stays the same. The problem is usually that's very costly and very lengthy. Greenfield means you basically ignore it. You tell your dealers or everybody say, this is your old computer, leave it in the corner. Here's a totally new system, and move all the core processes to a new system. And we deploy it with a new cloud layer, UI, UX, with the immediate activation of use cases, for example, whatever, reducing sales incentive spend and all of this. So this can be deployed quite fast. You have the latest user interface, user experience. The problem then is that you still have your legacy systems and the legacy cost until you basically can deprecate it. And I think there's no real right answer for it. My only ask is please be intentional about it and make the right decision. So to summarize it, top 6 tips it should be. Sorry, I added one last minute. So first of all is follow the customer's accelerated adaptation to more digitization. It has already started. Corona will act as a catalyst and accelerator, and all we know is that the digital behavior is here to stay. Watch out, there are some really leading manufacturers and retailer groups that are driving the change. So there's already a lot of players now in the market that prove that it works. Then also make sure you need to connect your data along the entire sales process, down to the dealers, down to the call centers. Don't forget what's happening at the call centers. We do know that for one web-generated lead, there are usually 9 web-generated calls in a system. And if you don't track what's happening in your call centers, you're pretty much not tracking 90% of the impact what we're doing. Also, once you have the data, work with it. And please start with the big ticket item use cases that really drive P&L impact. So for example, work at your big media budgets, work on your big sales incentive budgets, work in a very big hypothesis-driven approach here. Then, as I just said, be thoughtful about your transformation approach, brownfield, greenfield, or deliberately choose a mix thereof. And also, I think that's the good news for the entire auto industry. You have amazing brands, you're having strong established networks. So that's already a big part of omnichannel. You need to add the digitization to it, but you actually can build on this very, very successfully. So I think you're all in a good place to get through this and come out even stronger. So thank you very much for this. Happy to take questions.
Grazie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Richter. We lag behind with our schedule, but we came to understand that the great revolution lies ahead. That is why we have to move quickly. So, first round of opinion sharing with the guests here with me on stage. So, first question. Beyond the negative sides, we know that way too well. We've been discussing about that for 2 months during the pandemic. Now, what can we do, starting from the information we have, what we just heard from our managers who just spoke? Dr. Vester, what's the starting point? What is the positive input we can give? Well, the question is how the world will look like after the crisis. If I only knew. I do agree with some scenarios I've heard, and I'm not quite on the same line on other scenarios. Very often we hear crises are opportunities in terms of discoveries and strategies. But what wanted to say is what is actually a crisis? A financial crisis? Health crisis due to coronavirus? Well, a crisis in the end is a crisis because it hits people right in their daily life, habits and activities. I'm therefore fully convinced that a determining factor here after the crisis is not really not connected with the way in which we manage our business or with the way institutions manage their local areas. Well, I won't list whatever we as people and the world can do and what are we suffering. Isolation, economic problems, diseases, sufferings and death. At the moment, I have very tangible ideas in terms of business, but let's imagine what people would like to have, what we would like to have as a whole. I believe that there are going to be huge changes ahead, potentially. I can imagine that people hope for a better world, a greener world, clean air and water, more freedom and responsibility, a lesser globalized world, more technology and skills in general when it comes to the public management and contactless services. We've seen some examples. Less offices and more telework, more smart work. I'm convinced that the after part won't ever be like before. Second point, we all need to acknowledge and work being responsible. In our realities, we are responsible, and politicians as well in different countries and societies are responsible. We have to make sure that the post-COVID situation is better than the situation we left before. Mr. Pagani, you arrived slightly after the beginning of the event, but let's move to your opinion. You make sure dreams can come true. Your cars and the relationship you create with the driver is slightly different. Over this standstill period, how did you manage to keep in contact with the people who are passionate about your cars, and how will you start back on track? What's going to be the most important point for you? Well, I'd say we manufacture basically useless cars. No offense intended. I do manufacture useless cars. And very expensive cars indeed. Hence, what we should do in order to make sure people purchase those cars is a twofold scenario. We need to find those rational mechanisms that allow us to understand how and why a person takes such as an irrational action as purchasing our car. And this is a rational pathway. And then on the other side, we have to be dreamers ourselves in order to encompass within our cars the passion and added value which is triggered by the craftsmanship and those Renaissance value we embrace. We want to make sure that these objects create an emotion, a magic, let's say, that makes so that a person spends so much money. And this on the side of the customer. We heard extraordinary things about daily cars, but for better or for worse, people standing here are not manufacturing everyday cars. So many of the ideas we just heard cannot really be applied in our cars. When I purchase a car by Mr. Galliera, a Ferrari, I'm not really interested in being connected. I just want to look at my prancing horse and hear the roaring sound of the engine. So some of the ideas that we discussed are not going to have an impact on your cars. And the other question is, what about emotions and the emotional component? Now, the emotional component has been kind of destroyed. So how will you tangibly work? Well, first of all, we want to make sure that creativity and enthusiasm of our staff is high. If I don't work in a pleasant environment, well, it's going to be very hard to have a positive and optimistic mindset. So on our behalf, we need to be aware, very much aware indeed. Aware of the person we have right in front of us, our colleagues, and we have to keep high the morale of the staff and the team. Otherwise, in times of crisis, our job won't be successful and people won't purchase cars. At the moment, we are all afraid. We keep far away one from the other, and we work from home. And is this helping as well? Well, yes, of course. Because you might wear a tie and then wear your flip-flops during a webinar, but that's not the way in which we manufacture cars. In our area, we find a huge added value, which is tied to the craftsmanship of those people manufacturing the cars, the chassis, the engine, etc. So your drivers need to have passion. What are you doing in order to achieve that? Well, lately we've been connected and tried to meet them via our digital means, via a screen. So that's something we do actually in spite of the crisis, because the number of our customers is small, and it allows us to keep in contact, keep in touch with them. Anyway, the world was changed before COVID-19. We had this girl talking about the environment. Cars were the main reason of pollution throughout the world. And this made us think upon the situation. There is a lot of demagogy underlying, and I think that things have changed, which is going to be positive, I think. We often say that crises are opportunities, and in a way, this is true indeed, because they make you understand about the positive and negative aspects, and if you have a vision, if you are passionate enough, and if you have a positive behavior, you will overcome that and avoid depression. Mr. Stefano Domenicali, we've heard many topics, many important ideas. The world is changing. It's not going to be as before. You showcased your spider and talked about the augmented reality already. What are going to be the positive aspects in these changes? What about electrification? We heard that a few moments ago, electrification is going to be paramount. Well, we tried to make the most out of these months that came so quickly, abruptly, and we didn't want to stop. So, from one side, we wanted to keep our relationship with customers via the interactivity with the platforms. Our clients and customers are very, very young. Therefore, we had the tools which were key to keep in touch with them, to provide them with content and inform them about what we were doing. We're talking about products with a very much physical component. And therefore, we thought that given that there was no hope ahead, we didn't want to stay firm. So we thought of launching Huracan via our platforms and a cooperation with Apple and augmented reality. That was a way in which we wanted to look ahead and stimulating the appetite for something that is going to be seen on the roads. And during such a period in which things changed so quickly, we have to think of a moment where the emotional part that pushes the customers has to become a key part. What we've seen so far is a great sensitivity of customers. They did not cancel orders, yet they're waiting for the recovery, of course. Now dealerships are opening worldwide, and at the moment where everything is more or less shut, we need to understand how to go back to life. We do hope that the transition is not very long. Personal behaviors are going to influence future social behaviors, which in turn is going to affect the use and purchase of our products. Second question, electrification. We are part of a group that defined very clearly the development of every brand belonging to the group. Being a part of a super niche market, we already stated that we're moving towards hybrid vehicles. We're going to develop products towards this direction. When it comes to Lamborghini, pure electrification is way too ahead. What about human-to-machine interface? Well, HMI completes a range of a mechanical product which has a strong physical feature. We launched with Amazon and Alexa in Detroit, Las Vegas. Well, Camplone was saying that there are key assets that make sure the product is fully used. This is something we have to think about. Lamborghini is a younger brand, a reference point for younger customers, so we also worked in this field. Mr. Claudio Domenicali, Ducati, what about brownfield, greenfield, etc.? What's your opinion? For sure, this topic came to the limelight over the last months. Many people suffered throughout the world, and our deep thoughts have to join those families who lost a family member. There was so much sufferance, a sufferance that made us reflect. That's why we are pushed to think about new ideas. People are saying that nothing is going to be as it was before. Actually, I think this accelerates a trend that was already there. The omni-channel world was pretty there in every brand due to the fact that traditional retailers had problems. We moved from 5 visits to the car dealer to 1 visit. So this was already underway, this change. So social distancing, shutting down car dealers, in a way pushed us to use such channels. In my opinion, though, we don't have to think that everything is going to change, because there's going to be this willingness to have physical contacts and personal relationship, in particular for the brands belonging to the Motor Valley. The emotional part is going to be a key feature. Massimo Bottura was here with us, and he provides a physical experience in his restaurants. You cannot replace that with anything else. The secret lies with the perfect blend of these components, a mix between the digital and the analog world. The experience of driving a Ducati on track is unique. Well, Formula One and MotoGP championship did not start. Haven't started yet. So we witnessed to some virtual championships, both in cars and motorbikes. So is there this willingness to use so heavily the web? We've seen some simulators that offer a pretty good version of reality. So you're making the most out of this reality, but what about the emotional component? It's not that strong, the emotional component, when driving with a simulator, isn't it? What inputs would you like to give? Well, on Saturday, on occasion of the Motor Valley Fest, there is going to be a Ducati e-race where official pilots belonging to Ducati are going to challenge digital, let's say, champions. This race was organized bearing in mind the fact that we want to generate passion and entertaining, and also we wanted to create connections with people, leading to physical connections, which are made of dealerships and the product. So we are clearly accustomed to living in our social media world. We do have an avatar. It might be ourselves or another person. I don't want to push this idea beyond that, but we are accustomed to this mix between the virtual and the physical world. These 2 months have highlighted the importance of the digital world and the fact that the digital world can partially replace the real world. But men and women want to live on their skin beauty and emotions. So as soon as the health conditions will allow that, there is going to be a balance between these 2 aspects. Mr. Galliera, Ferrari is a very famous brand. What are the elements that you are considering in terms of the world which is opening up the world of connectivity. What's your stance in this regard? Well, I partially agree with what has been said so far. It's very difficult to have clear in mind what is going to happen in the future. We don't have a crystal ball here. Yet there are some indicators that are accelerating. This speed in digitalization, all in all, was there already. Each and every one of us was there. I heard about customer journey and being close to the customer before and after. We've been talking about that before. I talk on behalf of Ferrari, and I believe that every company grasped this opportunity. We developed a customer app. I don't know if it's about the greenfield the speaker was mentioning. So we wanted to use new technologies to keep in touch with the customer. This is fundamental. Maybe this procedure will speed up. Will it replace the physical experience? I do agree with my colleagues here. The value that our products have, sitting and smelling the leather, hearing the roaring engine on track or on the road, well, these are unmissable features. They are priceless features. I can't, of course, pretend nothing has happened. I'm not that silly. I understand the world is changing, yet not completely changing. That's why I would like to have a positive mindset, even though we are facing very hard times. As Horacio Pagani was saying, our products are not necessary, yet they have unique features. For example, whatever we do here, whatever Ferrari does and these colleagues do, are almost art objects, technological art. When it comes to clients and customers, many called me and said, I can't wait to receive the car. I've been at home for so long and I want to touch it, look at it and smell it. This is a feature of our products. They are art objects and they give emotion. So the fact of sitting on a car and driving it in the morning is a great emotion. Currently, we are living at times of social distances and living emotions such as a dinner, a concert. Well, these elements are very rare. So we have to look at craftsmanship, beauty, and design. We have to look at the emotions that our objects provide, and this is going to be a winning feature. Well, you might communicate what you're doing and what you're designing, creating this sensation of wanting to see what's about to happen. Well, again, I talk about Ferrari, but we communicated via the digital. Ferrari does very few advertising. We have 3 phases. The first one adapts to each specific market. Of course, Italy lives a situation, the United States a different situation. In the first phase, during the lockdown, we stopped talking about the product. The world was facing far bigger problems then, so we started talking about social responsibility. We used speed and flexibility in order to redesign our activities and make sure we did something that could be useful for our community and people. Our company worked on the project Back on Track, a series of initiatives to make sure that the jobs were safe, because our staff is the most important element. So we wanted to speed this opportunity to move towards the second step. The market is slowly reopening. We hope that the United States opens as well. So we wanted to send positive messages, something that was much appreciated by customers. We've shown a Monza car heading to the United States, and he wrote us saying he was drawn to tears looking at his car exiting the line. Then we will more strongly work on the product communication to support our product sales. Mr. Pontremoli, CEO of Dallara. You already are accustomed to using the web and digital tools. How to relaunch the Motor Valley after the lockdown? Well, we heard many answers before. Over the last 2 months, we chatted a lot. 2 parameters changed deeply: time and space. We all had very few time and lots of space. We could travel all around the world, but all of a sudden the situation capsized. We have so much time and so little space. The fact of having so much time makes you think about the world. Last year here, I said something, and this is even more true. The automotive world is dividing into 2 parts, and the gap is widening. Mobility on one side, moving from A to B in an efficient way, electric vehicle, assistive drive, and then the other part, pleasure, fun, beauty, adrenaline, which is the world we represent here. So we can't really cast a shadow on our world and turn it into a mass world. The reality is telling us to push on the world we represent. I would like to thank all the dear friends who are here with me. We worked with the university, Muner, and we sat together to study what skills are going to be needed in the future. Our main asset is represented by people because our products are manufactured by people. They don't come out of the blue. Second, Claudio Domenicali has become president of the Motor Valley, so we started to make sure our companies could be seen and visible. Second, we joined our forces to communicate. The Motor Valley right now has an extraordinary chance to gather together emotions, beauty, culture, adrenaline, and play at a local level. So making sure that our customers can visit this theater or can travel and eat at Bottura's restaurant is very important. So we have these journeys starting from Borgo Panigale on Monday, arriving at Dallara on Saturday, spending a day in each and every company here on this stage. Those who are passionate about this sector understand it. We don't have to sell millions of cars. So we have to care about those who have this passion, and we have to be together in this. Of course, each and every one of us has specific features. Orazio said, I bought a Ferrari by Galliera, and he sells Pagani. I'm not ashamed saying that in my garage I do have those cars. Those cars were my dream cars when I was a child. We will very soon give our Dallara after COVID. A man told me that dreams can be slowed down but cannot be stopped. So we are selling dreams. We are selling a way of life. a way of being. This COVID-19 made us think about time and how to use it at best. Time is going to be spent better in something that gives us pleasure. I worked at IBM, and then I went back to my homeland. Back then, it was 2000. I worked where I didn't like. I was forced to go there. Actually, I was in Paris, which is a very nice place. My family was in Bardi, up in the hills. And I was traveling for job reasons. I dream of a world where, thanks to technology, I can live where I want. I can choose where I want to live. Stefano decided to live up the hills as well because he wanted this completely different lifestyle. So I dream about living where I want and only travel for pleasure. Job trips are going to decrease enormously. Yes, indeed. Many customers are going to also purchase via the web. What you have and manufacture requires a physical contact. Yet you are implementing strategies. Well, the web is a tool to increase desire. But then you have to, fulfill the desire. So when you visit this area, I want to fulfill you when it comes to food, to good life, adrenaline, the pleasure of feeling an emotion. We don't take pictures of monuments any longer. The monument has to live with you. You have to experience the monument. That's the way in which it's going to stick in your mind. So you have to use the social media to report back to your friends the emotions you felt on your skin looking at these cars. I am a supplier rather than a manufacturer, actually. So this is going to be a key aspect. We have to play together with communication, playing on the motor valley. Our area is a way of being, a way of life. It's a passion we all share. I do recommend my colleague to bear in mind one aspect, resilience of the supply chain. We all live and have businesses thanks to the fact that we do have professionals and craftsmen that are unique. And they reach the world thanks to the leaders of the supply chain that are here on this stage. When the customers are going to visit this local area, they might also visit CTS in Maranello, creating exhaust systems, or go to Punta di Serramazione. The name is Punta di Serramazzoni because Enzo Ferrari brought some friends there, and he went to a restaurant. This restaurant had two sons, and Enzo Ferrari told the restaurant owner, well, why don't you work in the electric sector? This guy became an electrician and created a company. So what was going to be the name? Name it Punta. And that's because Punta di Vitello, which is a specific beef cut, is particularly delicious in this restaurant. So we do have this passion. We do have so many tracks in our local area because we want to make sure our customers try physically the products. This is going to be a very important market as well. Building upon these tools and making the most out of the web, we won't have any competitor. So it's a whole package, an all-comprising package, really, comprising the driver, right? This is the future. Well, yes. Many of the products to be purchased are being used for 0.1% of the time, but I'm sure that when you have dinner with your family, you can have it in the garage because you visit your car. You want to touch it and hear the sound of the engine. It belongs to you. It's unique. So if we move towards massification, that's not really our future. Mobility is another story. That's what we're doing in Dallara. We are suppliers, we are advisors. We learn from motorsport and supercars, and we want to transfer this know-how in supercars. Having an efficient car means to have probably an electric engine, a lighter engine. My car weighs 1,700 kilos. Efficiency is also that. The fact of reducing consumption via the efficiency of the propeller, which can be electric, but also a 35 to 40 horsepower propeller in a city, that's perfect. Thinking about mobility in a city means to rethink about the city itself. But when you move out of the city, you might want one of our cars to visit the Trentino region or to visit your friends outside the region. This is a great challenge. We have to create it together. While hearing, I noticed some very important aspects. Over the last months, I was worried about keeping the job of 20,000 engineers. And that was about the future of Maserati, but also about FCA future, which is going to launch products in the second part of the year. So to reorganize employment, work, and the life of those 20,000 people was important. People and us made extraordinary things. Apart from some people, we worked from home. I have thousands of pictures showing that people were working in their garage or in their homes. We worked hard in order to ensure continuity, and I would like to keep those pictures for the future. I think we have to reinforce the idea of smart working. This requires important changes from a leadership point of view. The fact of not being present requires to create order, tidiness in the processes, because you're not directly controlling and checking. I think we will also see positive effects when it comes to offices consolidation. This might not be important for small to medium groups, but when you have 20,000 employees and 35 premises, that's important indeed. I think that we will push harder on digitalization and the Internet of Things. We will improve the cooperation with our suppliers because we learned so much, and I appreciate that. We decided to increase even more the virtual development. In the past, we behaved in a different way. We had the chance to make sure these services were robust. But now I can see that the use of technology is really feasible. So I do agree with my colleagues here. What's being said, it's true for us. The way in which we're going to work is to be totally different. Time, location, responsibilities are very important aspects. All the problems we had to face will lead to a change. This technical and industrial world is going to be definitely different and better. We talked about electrification and emissions. What's the development in this field in FCA and Maserati? We heard Marcus Hein by Bosch. They said they're going to work hard on this. We all acknowledge that electrification has evolved in vehicles. I heard at least 4 times the sentence, I'm okay with hybrids, but they have to have a great performance. So I'm not convinced that nothing is going to change here. Why? Well, it's just about driving a 2000 horsepower car. Take a look at its acceleration. You can't really think that you cannot replace those things with electrification. When it comes to acceleration and performance, electrification is a very good powertrain already. 4-wheel drives are easy to make. You can easily manage the handling of the vehicle, which is something impossible to do with a mechanic power drive 4x4. When it comes to emotions, we have many tools in our hands nowadays. I can create simulations. I can create whatever sound and vibration. So you're saying that an electric car can be simulating? Absolutely, yes, I do. Well, come and see. Come and test it. There's an electric Maserati about to come, isn't it? Well, yes, last year we said that no new model of Maserati is not going to come electrified. And the car is going to be fully electric as well. I am fully into the electrification. Schopenhauer described a curve many years ago, describing 3 stages leading to truth. The first, things are mocked. Then second, strongly contested. And thirdly, they are acknowledged as evident. And in my opinion, we are at this stage. The industrial and technical world is enormously complex. This has nothing to do with COVID-19. We have capex levels that are no longer sustainable. We've seen autonomous cars, connectivity, customization, digitalization. We're talking about billions here. On this stage, we have many companies. Stefano, if you didn't have a donor in Ingolstadt or Volksburg, your business would not be sustainable. Think about tomorrow. I bought a Lamborghini. What's the price of your car? $400,000? You don't really need an infotainment system or a highly connected car. Say I'm driving in the city streets. Next to me stands a person driving a 500, a 500 with autonomous drive, reading a newspaper, or minding his own business. Whereas the other person is fully busy with paddles and pedals. So that's no longer about purity and flexibility. These become gaps, little by little. I acknowledge that your customers and my customers have many more cars than that. Well, we have to keep our attention high, not to miss any opportunity. So we are heavily investing in electric vehicles in the future. When it comes to big numbers, we will launch a 500 BEV and then Compass with plug-in hybrid. Many more models will come, and from next year onwards, Maserati, etc. So I don't agree really with what Mr. Haynes said. It depends on how quickly the market grows. When it comes to fully electric vehicles, we can't go on with such level of complexity. At a certain point, we need to stop. If the market takes 40% of this, 30% of that, well, I will move towards that direction. Now, Orazio Pagani. This technology and the ideas that have been discussed so far, what is your opinion when it comes to that type of cars, electrification in Pagani cars? Well, before moving towards those topics, I would like to think about an aspect that made me think a lot. And it revolves also around the cars that are being manufactured here. Over the last years, statistical data said that the wealth throughout the world increased notably, and it is also well distributed. There are many wealthy people that can purchase this type of cars. It is also true that young people are not that much interested in cars. There is no longer the passion we had back in the days, changing some car features and washing our cars, etc. I remember I was at a friend's house in the past, and he said, the vice president of Abarth, he was that. So he said, as soon as I had some money, I purchased the car of my dreams when I was a kid. But my kids are not really interested in that. They live in San Francisco. They use shared mobility. I gave them a BMW. I loved that car, but they parked it somewhere and forgot about that. So this passion is really missing. So what we need to do, and the web can help us here, we have to work in order to make sure the passion is regained.
You know, some people now have no money to buy this kind of car. I mean, the supercar that we make here in our Italian Motor Valley. But of course, this person has to, you know, dream about this car right now. Otherwise, they will never become a purchaser of these cars. You know, usually, well, if you have enough money and if you have some passion, you know, what you want to do is basically, well, make sure you can make sure this dream comes true. So once again, you have the money to buy something. It could be a bag or a bike or a car. Well, of course, you want to buy what you used to dream many, many years before when you had no money. I remember some time ago, I mean, a person came to my company at the very beginning of my adventure. He wanted to buy a Sondar, so one of my cars, a customer from France. And, you know, he said, well, you know, I'm considering this idea. I like it so much. But, you know, my passion was Lamborghini. Now, we had lunch together, and then, you know, at the end of lunch, so at the end of the day, I said, you know what? And I remember the Lamborghini made, you know, Murcia. And I said, why don't you do something, please? Now, you have to make sure your dream comes true, okay? It's your passion. It's inside of you. This is something that must have been inside of you for so many years. I mean, your passion was Lamborghini. Just buy a Lamborghini. This is the first thing you have to do, okay? Then if you also like one of my cars, you are welcome, and you can, you know, knock back on my door, okay? So to wrap up, I think that we all have to strive. I mean, we all have to work to try and create, you know, mechanisms or something that, you know, raises emotions in young guys, because now they don't care about cars. I mean, they no longer have this desire of owning a car, okay? Possession or ownership seems no longer important, okay? There will be many new choices in the future, so electric cars and many other cars, but, you know, we have to make sure they like cars. Stefano Domenicali, you told me that you have plenty of young drivers. Well, maybe it sounds a little contradictory with what Orazio Pagani said, but it's true. Young people are less interested in owning a car. So how can you get new customers? Is it the heritage? Well, we started, I mean, some years ago on communication tools. I mean, as was said before, I mean, we started some years ago. And now this world is now made of data. And we have basically 2 million followers on Instagram some years ago. Now we have 27 million. So we tried and, you know, get in touch with, you know, potential customers or prospects, you know, some years ago. It was aspirational customers, you know, and we gave them contents and information, and we fed them with data. And of course, their language is totally different versus the language of, for example, Lamborghini traditional customers, you know. So in terms of, you know, change or intergenerational change, we basically strove to get in touch with new prospects or new customers. Once again, I'm talking about relatively small figures if you consider, you know, how big the world is. I mean, we sell authentic products, genuine products, almost, you know, handmade. So once again, I know that I'm not a big company, and as Andrea said before, we have many different ingredients that we have to take into account. I mean, physical contact, feel at ease when you use a car. This is absolutely necessary for you. I mean, it's good for your self-esteem, it's good for you, and it's good for what you want to show yourself. Couple of points. Okay, emotions. Okay, just one word. What do you think emotions are? Well, for me, emotions are, well, let me think for 1 second, meeting some very deep, hidden needs, elementary, if you will, basic needs that we all have. And, for example, the fact of, you know, feeling alive or having the right feelings so that you can really experience life. Everyone has his or her own passions. They wake you up in the morning and they, invite you to embrace a new day. The day may be easy or difficult, but anyway, you see the light at the end of the tunnel. You have a target for that day or for that week. This is the reason why we are deploying currently so many different actions, and I'm sure that the most important thing we do now is to sort of seamlessly strike a balance, physical, non-physical, emotional balance. In terms of Instagram, I mean, our share there is so big, and I think we are really, really very strong on Instagram because, of course, we need to talk to young people. It's true, they have a problem in terms of accessing, bikes and cars. I mean, the kind of passion people had 30 years ago, well, this is something that you don't see today, okay? But anyway, we do have young people. For example, you don't see them on the TV. Okay, just a very short personal story to tell you what emotion is for me. I am lucky enough to have a nice job. I mean, I like it. I mean, I drive sports car and plenty of Ferrari. This is what I do at the end of the day when I go back home. My wife and my children understand immediately if I have driven a Ferrari. So it depends on if I have a smile on my face or not. Emotion means it's a pinch of salt in your life, okay? So just like a little spice in your life. Now, during COVID, we understand what is essential: breathing, eating, sleeping. But now we understand that with essential things only, you don't have deep, nice, beautiful, thrilling emotions. So I'm really very happy when I see my customers cry because they are so happy. For example, I try my car in the racing track and I cry at the end of the racing track. And this is something I want to share, okay? So this is the real emotion. So once again, back to what I said before, you use the web to share this with millions of people. So this is an alchemy that we all have to try and create. Thank you so much to our panelists and speakers. There will be other roundtables today and many other days during this week. So thanks to our web, you will be able to visit plenty of places in the Moto Valley, our incredible companies, museums, and our history. Thank you so much. Arrivederci. Bye-bye.